The heavens above Devilfall Valley seemed to darken without warning. A suffocating pressure spread silently through the land, as though the very air had been tainted by an ancient, malevolent will. Spiritual chi churned in chaotic currents, trembling as if it feared something unseen. From the depths of the valley, a devilish aura rose, vast, oppressive, and utterly foreign to this world. It carried with it the stench of corruption and the weight of countless fallen souls, pressing down upon every living being like an invisible mountain. Nascent soul cultivators, figures who stood at the peak of the mortal world, felt their hearts grow heavy. An instinctive sense of danger screamed within them, warning that something far beyond ordinary calamity had awakened. And yet amidst the gathering storm, a lone figure stood unmoving. Golden lightning flickered faintly around his arm, illuminating his calm gaze as he looked toward the source of that monstrous presence. Where others felt fear, his eyes reflected only cold vigilance. In Devilfall Valley, an ancient horror had revealed itself, and for the first time since its awakening, it had found prey worthy of its attention. If you enjoy my way of explaining and storytelling, don't forget to like and subscribe. It really motivates me to keep creating. When Violet Spirit saw the colossal mountain of ice shudder and fracture, her face instantly drained of color. Almost unconsciously, she turned to look at Han Li. At that moment, Han Li appeared utterly calm, his expression devoid of even the slightest trace of panic. Seeing this, Violet Spirit's heart finally settled. She knew that he must still have other means to protect himself. Yet to her surprise, Han Li made no further use of any magic treasures or techniques. Though the blue ice mountain trembled violently beneath the crashing boulders and the surging chi wave, it remained firm and unyielding, showing no signs of collapse. Delight flickered across Violet Spirit's face as she realized that this mountain of ice had not been condensed from ordinary glacial chi. Its toughness far exceeded all expectations. After the time it took to finish a single cup of tea, the astonishing white wave of chi finally swept past them. With a thunderous roar, it surged off into the distance, before gradually vanishing from sight. Violet Spirit let out a soft sigh, recalling her embroidered scarf from its misty form back into her hand. Turning to Han Li, she asked in puzzlement, "What was that? How could Devilfall Valley possibly harbor such a terrifying thing?" Han Li's eyes flickered as he muttered, "I'm not certain either." However, the spiritual chi in the distance was extremely abnormal, utterly chaotic. Could such a terrifying chi wave have been caused by a spatial tear rather than a cultivator? Even so, the wave was so fearsome that the valley's restrictions were unable to stop it. A nascent soul cultivator might withstand it, but if it were to reach the outer valley, core formation cultivators would almost certainly perish. Hearing this, Violet Spirit frowned and extended her spiritual sense in the direction from which the chi wave had come. However, her spiritual sense could not reach that far, and she was only able to vaguely perceive an unusual disturbance in the chi. "There's definitely something wrong," she said solemnly. "Brother Han, do you intend to investigate the source of this?" Han Li paused briefly before replying with firm certainty, "Why would I? Whether that wave was artificially created or merely the result of a coincidental explosion, I have no intention of courting trouble, no matter how curious I may be. Let's return to the outer valley. Our objective has already been achieved. With such a strange disturbance occurring, the ghost spirit sect will likely be far too occupied to search for us. This is the perfect chance to leave." As he spoke, Han Li gestured toward the massive shield before him. It rapidly shrank before transforming into a streak of light and disappearing into his sleeve. As for the ice mountain, Han Li pressed his palm against its surface. Blue light flared brilliantly, and in the blink of an eye the mountain melted away completely. A sphere of blue flame then appeared in his palm. Violet Spirit's expression immediately changed, alarm flashing across her face. Han Li raised his hand, gazing at the ball of blue flame, with a trace of satisfaction in his eyes. This new method of manipulating ice flames was something he had comprehended within the world of illusion. Though this was the first time he had ever used it, the execution was smooth and precise, as if he had already practiced it countless times, something that surprised even him. This clearly proved that the experiences within the world of illusion were not mere fabrications of the mind. They were genuine insights into the laws of heaven and earth, originating from a higher realm. Witnessing this only strengthened Han Li's confidence in breaking through to the mid-nascent soul stage. A faint smile tugged at the corners of his lips as he turned toward Violet Spirit, just about to speak, when suddenly, light flared along the distant horizon behind them, revealing two streaks of radiance tearing through the sky. One streak glowed yellow, the other white. Both trembled violently as they shot forward, clearly fleeing in Han Li's direction. "Yi!" Han Li exclaimed in surprise upon sensing them with his spiritual sense. Violet Spirit extended her own spiritual sense and discovered that the two streaks of light belonged to nascent soul cultivators. Unable to discern more, she asked Brother Han, "Do you recognize them?" "Of course I do," Han Li replied with a deep frown. "I've had dealings with them before." Within the yellow streak of light was a sallow-faced old man, clad in yellow robes, ancestor Lingu of Yellow Maple Valley. The white streak, meanwhile, concealed a woman dressed in white, her expression icy and aloof, the Grand Elder of the Masked Moon Sect, Nanlong Wan's senior martial sister. Han Li was astonished to discover that the two of them had also entered Devilfall Valley. It seemed they had slipped inside at the very last moment. Both wore expressions of unmistakable terror as they fled at full speed. Strangely, there was nothing visible chasing them. Even so, they dared not slow down in the slightest, as though some invisible horror lurked just behind them. Han Li found this deeply perplexing. After all, neither of them could be considered weak. Ancestor Lingu was a mid-nascent soul cultivator, while Nanlong Wan's senior martial sister possessed formidable treasures and techniques. That the two of them had chosen to flee rather than stand their ground was utterly inconceivable. Could it be Mulan Divine Sage Zhong? The thought made Han Li's heart tremble. His relationship with the Mulan spell warriors had long been hostile. He had ruined their plans on multiple occasions and personally slain many high-grade Mulan spell warriors. If he were to encounter Divine Sage Zhong, there was no doubt that the man would immediately seek his life. With that in mind, Han Li wasted no time. Taking advantage of the fact that the two cultivators had yet to notice him, he appeared beside Violet Spirit in a blur. Forming an incantation gesture with his hands, a layer of shimmering light descended over them, causing their figures to vanish completely. Wrapped within the azure glow, Han Li and Violet Spirit disappeared from sight. Moments later, the two fleeing streaks of light brushed past the very mountain where Han Li had concealed himself. Han Li clearly saw the deathly pale expression on Ancestor Lingu's face. Then his gaze shifted to a point roughly 300 meters behind them, his eyes narrowing. "Where do you think you're going?" A wild, arrogant laughter echoed through the air. "What? You don't wish to accompany your companions? Tsk-tusk. Your cultivation is quite impressive, and your primal souls are exceptionally profound. They will make excellent offerings to this lord. How could I possibly allow you to escape? This time there will be no more surprises. You will obediently fall into my grasp." The voice roared with undisguised arrogance, shaking the surrounding Tiandi and ensuring that every cultivator within 5 kilometers heard it clearly. Moments later, a thin line of black light appeared at the exact spot where Han Li was staring. The black line flickered intermittently, each reappearance closing the distance between it and the two fleeing cultivators. In only a few breaths, it was less than 200 meters away. A vague silhouette could be discerned within the black radiance. Han Li hastily focused his attention on it, but through some unknown secret technique, his spiritual sense was unable to determine the figure's cultivation. All he could see was a blurred outline, yet that outline felt strangely familiar. After a brief moment of shock, recognition struck him like a thunderbolt. Marquis Nanlong. How could he be here? And something about him is different. Han Li's heart surged with disbelief, although Han Li did not know that Marquis Nanlong's body had been possessed by a devil soul. The overwhelming devilish qi radiating from him and his audacity in pursuing Ancestor Lingu and the Masked Moon Sect's Grand Elder was utterly abnormal and completely out of character. At that moment, Marquis Nanlong reappeared within the black light, now only 100 meters from his prey. He let out a sinister laugh as the surrounding black radiance violently ruptured. A sphere of pitch-black devilish chi enveloped his body, and in a flicker he vanished. When Ancestor Lingu and the woman in white saw this, their expressions changed drastically. They came to an abrupt halt and acted at once. One produced a pitch-black mirror, the other brandished a jade scepter. Brilliant barriers of light instantly enveloped their bodies. Suddenly, black light flared not far from them. Devilish chi erupted violently, engulfing an area of over 30 meters. Marquis Nanlong's silhouette could be faintly seen within the roiling darkness. "You clearly know you are no match for me," Marquis Nanlong sneered from within the black chi. "Why insist on such foolish resistance?" He casually waved his hand. Bung! A massive explosion resounded as a gigantic black hand materialized from thin air and slammed into the white-clothed woman. She was blasted backward over 20 meters, her protective barrier from the mirror shuddering violently before she barely managed to stabilize herself. Ancestor Lingu's complexion grew even paler. With a harsh expression, he shouted angrily, "What are you? Not only have you possessed fellow Taoist Nanlong's body, but you even dare to devour the primal soul of another cultivator. Do you truly believe that there is no one in Devilfall Valley capable of stopping you? There are dozens of nascent soul cultivators within this valley. No matter how powerful you are, escaping death will not be easy." Marquis Nanlong showed not the slightest fear. Instead, he burst into laughter. "Dozens of nascent souls? Ha ha ha. Excellent. I originally thought there were only a handful of humans in this valley. To think there are so many nascent souls for me to devour, I'd better hurry and collect them all. With so many primal souls consumed, my soul power will nearly be fully restored." With a deafening boom, the black chi erupted violently and scattered in all directions. A figure shrouded in darkness blurred forward, shooting straight toward Ancestor Lingu and leaving a trail of after-images behind him. Ancestor Lingu's expression changed drastically. Without any further hesitation, he pointed at the jade scepter in his hand. Instantly, the barrier surrounding his body thickened, its dark green light becoming far more solid. At the same time, he spat out a small jade seal. The seal flew forth, transforming into a sphere of brilliant green light. Bung! Marquis Nanlong sneered coldly and struck the jade seal with a punch, not the slightest hesitation in his movements. Black and green light intertwined violently. The devilish chi suddenly contracted, then expanded explosively forcibly, scattering the green radiance. The jade seal was blasted backward and smashed fiercely toward Ancestor Lingu. Alarmed, he hurriedly formed an incantation gesture, rapidly reinforcing his protective barrier with one spell seal after another in an attempt to block the incoming treasure. Yet in that brief moment of delay, a pitch-black fist suddenly appeared before the barrier and smashed downward with terrifying force. The barrier shuddered violently. A massive force passed straight through it, sending Ancestor Lingu flying backward. However, his 1,000 years of life had not been lived in vain. Relying on his vast combat experience, he had already flicked his sleeve and released a fire-red flying dagger toward Marquis Nanlong's new position. Marquis Nanlong grinned sinisterly from within the black chi enveloping his face. As the flying dagger streaked toward his head, he did not bother to dodge. Instead, he took a deep breath and spat out a streak of black-red demon flame. The flying dagger attempted to cleave through the black-red flames, but it was instantly entangled. After several flashes of red light, the dagger let out a mournful groan before being completely devoured by the flames, falling lifelessly to the ground as a lump of dull, spiritless iron. Ancestor Lingu's heart jolted violently at the sight. That dagger might have appeared ordinary, but it was in fact a renowned treasure of the heavenly South Continent, the evil-slaying blade. It was an exceedingly rare treasure, especially effective against evil souls and demonic spirits. Seeing that Marquis Nanlong had clearly been possessed by a vicious evil entity, Ancestor Lingu had deliberately chosen to use this blade. Though he never expected it to inflict grievous injury, he never imagined it would be destroyed so casually. As Ancestor Lingu's face turned deathly pale, the devil-possessed Marquis Nanlong pressed the attack without giving him the slightest chance to recover. Leaning forward, his body suddenly folded and extended like a serpent. His torso shot forward unnaturally, slamming into Ancestor Lingu's barrier once again. Another tremendous impact sent Ancestor Lingu flying yet again. Marquis Nanlong's figure flickered strangely, instantly appearing before him, and began raining down punches without mercy. Completely suppressed, Ancestor Lingu was battered like a sandbag, utterly unable to retaliate. The jade scepter in his hand was undoubtedly a top-grade ancient defensive treasure. Although the dark green barrier trembled violently under the relentless assault, it stubbornly held firm. Even Marquis Nanlong let out a faint gasp of surprise, but his attacks never ceased. Fear completely overwhelmed Ancestor Lingu's mind. At that moment, he found himself in the same desperate situation as Lu Weiying. Every single punch scattered nearly all the spiritual power he managed to condense, leaving him unable to activate any further abilities or treasures. After a dozen or so blows, the Jade Scepter's barrier finally began to warp and distort. Ancestor Lingu's heart sank into the abyss. A vicious grin appeared on Marquis Nanlong's face. His figure blurred. One hand continued pounding the barrier, while the other formed into a blade-like shape. Devilish chi condensing fiercely as he prepared a fatal strike. Ancestor Lingu's complexion turned ashen. Cracks spread across the barrier. Gritting his teeth, he clenched an item hidden near his chest, ready to stake everything on a final gamble for survival. But at that critical moment, a thick beam of rainbow-colored light suddenly descended, enveloping Marquis Nanlong completely. At first, Marquis Nanlong paid it no heed. However, the instant the rainbow light touched his body, his expression changed. His body suddenly felt unbearably heavy, his movements slowing drastically. Marquis Nanlong exclaimed in surprise, turning his gaze toward the source of the light. The white-clothed woman stood there, holding an ancient mirror high above her head, the source of the rainbow beam. A cold, severe expression flashed across Marquis Nanlong's face. Seizing this fleeting opportunity, Ancestor Lingu was pulled back from the brink of despair. Without wasting a single breath, he gathered his magic power and fled in a streak of light. In the blink of an eye, he reappeared beside the white-clothed woman. There was no time for thanks. Ancestor Lingu immediately clasped his hands together and raised them high, releasing more than 10 flaming talismans at once. They shot toward Marquis Nanlong, who remained restrained within the rainbow light. At Ancestor Lingu's command, the talismans detonated one after another. Deafening rumbles echoed as scarlet flames surged forth, completely engulfing Marquis Nanlong. He spat out a breath of dense black chi, forcibly shielding himself from the raging inferno. Clearly unconvinced that this alone could kill him, Ancestor Lingu promptly formed another incantation gesture and produced a majestic white trident. The trident shrank before shooting forward in a devastating attack. At the same time, the white-clothed woman also took action. With one hand maintaining the mirror and restraining Marquis Nanlong, she summoned 2 flying swords with the other. One black, one white, they streaked toward him like twin bolts of lightning. The battle intensified, yet no one spoke a word. Suddenly, rainbow light flashed from below. Hanli frowned and asked the monarch of soul divergence, "Is the thing possessing Marquis Nanlong one of the elder devils you mentioned?" With a trace of schadenfreude, the monarch replied, "If it isn't an elder devil, what else could be so vicious? For it to force 2 nascent soul cultivators to flee, this elder devil must hold a rather high status, even within the elder devil realm. If you were to face it alone, your chances of victory would be slim, even without its original body." Hanli let out a bitter chuckle. "It's interesting that you didn't immediately tell me to flee, and it's not as if I have any desire to fight such a thing alone. Still, the world is truly chaotic for Marquis Nanlong to fall to such an end." The monarch of soul divergence snorted. "In terms of cultivation alone, even 4 of you wouldn't stand a chance against an elder devil inhabiting a possessed body. However, with your various treasures and techniques, your odds improve greatly. You even possess divine devil-bane lightning. While you may not defeat it, escaping should pose no great difficulty. Han Li smiled faintly, about to respond, when Violet Spirit's voice rang out anxiously. Brother Han, what should we do? Do you plan to attack? Ever since she had seen Marquis Nanlong's corrupted form, Violet Spirit had been terrified into silence. His ferocious display only deepened her fear. Han Li smiled reassuringly at her, but before he could speak, his expression abruptly changed. He suddenly raised his arm. A mist of azure chi surged forth, pulling Violet Spirit into his embrace as he shot upward in a streak of azure light. The azure glow faded, revealing Han Li holding Violet Spirit loosely in his arms, his gaze solemnly fixed below. Violet Spirit hastily freed herself from his grasp, her cheeks tinged with red, and looked down in confusion. There, standing below and staring coldly at them, was a pitch-black silhouette. Marquis Nanlong had appeared out of nowhere. He had clearly intended to launch a sneak attack, but Han Li had fortunately glanced around with his bright-sight spirit eyes at the critical moment. Violet Spirit felt her blood turn icy as she belatedly realized the danger. At the same time, the ball of black chi trapped within the rainbow beam vanished amidst the raging flames. The silhouette within flickered, revealing yet another Marquis Nanlong. Ancestor Linghu was initially delighted upon seeing Han Li appear in the distance. But when he noticed a second Marquis Nanlong, his heart sank instantly. He hurriedly shouted to the white-clothed woman, urging her to halt their attacks. At that moment, the Marquis Nanlong within the beam of light cast an indifferent glance at them before dissolving into black, Qid revealing it to be nothing more than a temporary incarnation. Ancestor Linghu and the white-clothed woman exchanged a glance, both of their eyes filled with deep fear. Creating an incarnation was not particularly difficult. However, for an incarnation to completely escape the detection of two nascent soul cultivators was truly terrifying. They had believed this incarnation to be the real Marquis Nanlong all along. It was clear that he had left behind a hollow shell at some unknown moment. Had he not chosen to ambush Han Li instead, one of them would already have fallen. Fellow Taoist Han, Ancestor Linghu shouted loudly, "I never expected you to be here. This is wonderful. This devilish monster is extraordinarily powerful. If we join forces, we may yet survive." Hearing this, Han Li could only offer a bitter smile. He had originally believed his concealment to be flawless, sufficient to escape even the notice of late nascent soul cultivators. Calmly observing the battle, he had intended to slip away once the opportunity arose. Yet he never imagined that the Elder Devil would discover him and even plan an ambush. It seemed that this battle was now unavoidable. Han Li nodded once toward Ancestor Linghu, then turned to Violet Spirit and said calmly, "Your cultivation is too low to be of any help here. You should withdraw while you still can. Don't worry, since all of us are engaging this beast, it won't have the opportunity to go after you." Given their friendship, Han Li urged Violet Spirit to leave without hesitation. In the coming battle, he simply could not afford to divert his attention to protect her. Violet Spirit hesitated briefly before nodding obediently. "Very well, then I shall take my leave. Brother Han, take care of yourself." She spoke softly, casting a glance at Marquis Nanlong below, then giving Ancestor Linghu one last, meaningful look before turning into a streak of light and flying away. Marquis Nanlong merely glanced at her retreating figure before shifting his gaze back to Han Li. It was unclear whether he deemed Violet Spirit too insignificant to bother with, or whether he considered 3 nascent soul cultivators troublesome enough already. Feeling Marquis Nanlong's cold stare upon him, Han Li's expression darkened. He raised one arm, and several dense arcs of golden lightning instantly coiled around it. Thunder cracked repeatedly as dazzling bolts of lightning danced along his limb. Faced with such a fearsome elder devil, Han Li had no intention of testing the waters. He immediately chose to strike with divine Devilbane lightning, the legendary lightning known for suppressing all wicked and demonic things. Truthfully, Han Li had long wished for a chance to test its effectiveness against a devil's techniques. Though this elder devil was formidable, Han Li was confident in the lightning's suppressive power. When Marquis Nanlong saw the golden lightning crackling along Han Li's arm, His eyes narrowed. After a moment of scrutiny, he spoke in an icy voice. "I recognize you from the remnant memories of this body's former owner. Though the details are unclear, he held a deep fear of you. Now I see why. Not only did you evade my ambush, but you also wield divine Devilbane lightning, the very thing that caused us immeasurable suffering in the past. It seems I'll have to expend considerable effort to deal with you." Hearing this, a cold smile flickered across Han Li's lips. The golden lightning surged even more fiercely. At the same time, he flicked his sleeve, and a small blue shield appeared before him. It spun rapidly, then expanded into a shimmering barrier of blue light that enveloped his body. Seeing Han Li take the initiative and directly confront Marquis Nanlong, Ancestor Linghu and the white-clothed woman exchanged looks of joy. Han Li's reputation was already renowned. He was an existence on par with late nascent soul cultivators. They silently exchanged voice transmissions and cautiously moved closer, preparing to support him at any moment. Marquis Nanlong frowned upon seeing Han Li remain unfazed by his words. A fierce expression appeared on his face. Without a sound, he stomped his foot. His entire body trembled, leaving behind only an afterimage. Han Li's expression remained calm, but his heart tightened with danger. He immediately swept his spiritual sense around. Yet, as expected, he could not detect any trace of the Elder Devil. Such concealment techniques alone would have been lethal to ordinary cultivators. Han Li narrowed his eyes. Blue light flashed from his pupils as he activated the bright sight spirit eyes with practiced ease. Suddenly, he raised his arm and released a bolt of golden lightning toward an empty space. Just before striking, it transformed into a rumbling net of lightning. An astonishing scene followed. Black light flickered within the empty space, revealing Marquis Nanlong's figure. Startled, he saw the golden lightning net descend, but in the next instant his expression darkened. His body blurred and the net slammed down upon nothing more than an after-image. Marquis Nanlong vanished once more. Han Li pressed his lips tightly together. Blue light still shone from his eyes as he turned sharply to the side. Raising his other arm and pointing toward another empty direction, thunder roared as a dense bolt of golden lightning shot forth, striking an empty space 20 meters away. Just as the lightning streaked forward, Marquis Nanlong's figure reappeared directly in its path. For a brief moment, he could only stare blankly at the oncoming thunderbolt. Marquis Nanlong was once again shaken. One successful prediction might have been coincidence, but a second was undeniable proof. Han Li could truly see through his movements. This time, Han Li's timing was flawless. Marquis Nanlong had no chance to dodge. He could only open his mouth and spit out a ball of black-red devil flame to meet the lightning head-on. With a sharp crack, black-red flames and golden lightning collided, flashing violently before dissipating like fire and ice, turning to smoke. Han Li exclaimed in shock. The Elder Devil actually possessed a method to block divine Devilbane lightning using that fearsome black-red devil flame. Yet under Han Li's careful observation, he noticed Marquis Nanlong's complexion pale for an instant when the devil flame dissipated. Though the Elder Devil recovered immediately, it was clear that the black-red flames were tied directly to his vitality or soul essence. Before Han Li could capitalize on this discovery, Marquis Nanlong suddenly crouched low. His body elongated unnaturally and shot forward as though boneless. In an instant, he appeared before Han Li, grinning savagely as he prepared to pummel him with fists cloaked in devilish chi. Han Li remained expressionless. He calmly stepped back half a pace. Thunder erupted from his back as a pair of silver-white wings unfolded. With another deafening clap, he vanished in a flash of silver lightning. Marquis Nanlong paused briefly before letting out a cold chuckle. Lightning movement. So you know quite a few tricks. What a pity. With a sneer, his body dissolved into black mist and disappeared as well. The exchange, 2 attacks and 2 disappearances occurred within the span of a single breath. Ancestor Linghu and the white-clothed woman had already prepared to intervene, but neither could find an opening. Now that both combatants had vanished, they exchanged uneasy glances and hastily activated their protective treasures. guarding against a sudden ambush. Unlike Han Li, they lacked the means to see through Marquis Nanlong's concealment. Suddenly thunder roared. Han Li reappeared over 60 meters away from his previous position. Almost immediately, black chi surged behind him, and Marquis Nanlong materialized. His face twisted with ferocity as he smashed his fists downward. Without turning, Han Li sensed the danger with his spiritual sense, but it was too fast. He could not activate lightning movement in time. He could only pour all his remaining spiritual power into the blue light shield, reinforcing it to block the attack. Bang! Bang! Han Li now tasted what ancestor Linghu had just endured. The blue barrier trembled violently as he was sent flying. The majority of the spiritual power he had just condensed was scattered by those two punches, preventing him from activating lightning movement again. Marquis Nanlong howled with savage laughter, his body turning into a violent gale as he pursued Han Li, preparing to rain down a storm of blows. Yet as Han Li was hurled through the air, unable to control his body, his face remained eerily calm. Having witnessed ancestor Linghu's plight, he had already prepared for this. Even without magic power, he still had other means. As sensation gradually returned to his arms, Han Li flicked his wrist and hurled a spirit beast pouch toward Marquis Nanlong. Before the elder devil could react, a loud buzzing erupted. Several thousand gold-devouring beetles poured forth, forming a dense black cloud that instantly enveloped him. Though Marquis Nanlong did not recognize the insects, the ancient aura they emitted sent a chill through his heart. He dared not be careless. With a sweep of his hand, he summoned a glowing green ghostly claw, shrouded in grey-white flames, swiping it through the swarm. In an instant, countless beetles were caught by the claw. The grey-white flames surged upward, burning more than a meter high, engulfing even those not directly struck. Marquis Nanlong sneered as the insects were consumed and resumed his charge toward Han Li. At that moment, the white-clothed woman seized her chance. She activated her mirror, releasing a beam of rainbow light toward Marquis Nanlong. Simultaneously, ancestor Linghu pointed at the milky white ring floating above his head. It flickered and shot forward as well. Marquis Nanlong roared in anger. His body blurred as he easily evaded the rainbow light. As troublesome as it was, the beam posed no threat so long as it failed to touch him. The white ring was clearly a restrictive treasure, but it too required direct contact to take effect. With this in mind, Marquis Nanlong refocused his attention on Han Li. Among all present, Han Li and his divine Devilbane lightning posed the greatest threat. However, Han Li had not been idle within his barrier. He slapped another spirit beast pouch at his waist. With a single command, over 10 massive puppets emerged, blocking Marquis Nanlong's path. Each puppet stood 6 meters tall, bearing a human body with the head of a tiger. As they raised their arms, 10 streaks of several-inch-long light gleamed fiercely from their claws. That's all for today's content. See you in the next part. Support me by becoming a member. It will give me more motivation. Thank you so much.